Well, good morning, team. It's Tommy G, middle-aged millennial, and we are here on yet another, excuse me, just downed a smoothie in record time, and I can feel it sitting down there in the old tummy right now. Yeah, we are here today to talk about pain, but pain of a different kind. And it's going to be with, let's bring her in, with Shivas and her favourite topic, pain. When
Hey,
it hurts. Hey, how you doing?
I'm here. Okay, cool.
Yeah, you're there.
Wait, I'm doing
What?
something.
Uh-oh.
I shared this to my timeline, I think. And I'm just gonna
Oh,
double
yeah?
check that it's shared to my timeline. Yeah.
All right. You did?
Yeah. Cool. We'll see if that works. Yep.
How,
How
how'd you
did
share it already? You shared what? How did you share it to your timeline? You're going to
um
have to show me these tricks of the trade.
I I just had my laptop like here and I just quickly said share to my page. You can do it. I
Oh.
Do you see where it says write a
While you're
comment?
going live? Well,
Well,
right
no,
now?
it was just Peter's here. It was just right when I
You
got
finally got
on.
it right.
There's a click share, and you can
Right. You got on.
click to share
Oh,
on
you
your.
can?
I think so.
Look, click,
So
share. All right, I'm not going to play with it now. But yes, Peter has been frustrated, understandably, with me trying to work out the tech, and then I changed to the desktop for my first Mindful Monday, and so that's it. I'm going back to the mobile. It kind of didn't work. Anyway, we got here. So it's been a
I
bit of pain, but finally got there
I missed your Mindful Monday. When did you do it?
on
Did you
Monday.
do it? You did it yesterday. You did?
I did it yesterday. Yeah, I did. And then I
Really?
shared it out. Pete,
Huh.
yeah.
I didn't
It
see
was
that.
like it was a 30-minute quick snap special. And it's pretty odd on the site. Had no one to pick on. Yeah, thank God. Because I was going all deep and meaningful, Pete, and it just would have left me totally vulnerable to anything you could have grabbed hold of and just say, what happens when you do this? What happens when you do this? I would have needed Ann Shivas to help relieve my pain from
Mm-hmm.
Pete. Yeah,
Probably.
poking
Aw.
fun everywhere, right?
There's
So,
a few coming back at
okay.
you, Pete. I'm gonna pick on Peter a little
Yeah.
bit when I see him.
Oh, there we go. All
Hmm.
right. Yeah, well, you won't be the only one. I think the scores are pretty weighted Peter's way at the moment, firing shots, so to speak. I think we'll be firing some shots with his artillery when we're there.
Yeah. Hey, question for Peter though. Does he meditate? I'm curious if he meditates. I'd like to
Doesn't
know
strike
his.
me as a doesn't strike me as a meditating type. Pete,
We're
do
learning a
you
lot about
meditate?
him. Yeah. Let's find
Yeah.
out. Do you
All
meditate?
right. We can find out. Do I meditate? Huh.
I meditate.
Is that is that what you call it?
I'm trying to meditate.
You're trying to meditate. Okay. So you're using the Muse, right?
Yeah. Actually, I wonder.
Yes,
Yeah, it's just right back there. Yeah.
the Muse.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you got to do a bird count.
Mm-hmm.
So you get birds for like it's kind of connected to calmness, yeah.
Yeah.
For 6 seconds. Pete, were you knocked out for 6 seconds? What happened? How did that happen? Did you fall on your head? Right. All I
All
need.
I need.
Oh yeah.
Then he's good
Come
to
on,
go.
meditator. There
Of
we
course
go.
he is.
Always give her a comeback. So how many birds, Anne?
Well, so actually, here's a question. You've been using Muse longer than I have, right?
Are you asking my question with a question?
Yes.
Right.
Answer my question.
Answer to that hard question is yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
here's the thing. I just got it last week, as per suggested by you. And
We're going to get the handicap thing. So you've got a golf handicap of what, 3,000? Okay, sorry, go on.
so you've been doing this for 1 year, and I've been doing it for 3 days. Just painting a picture
Okay.
here to make it, well, everyone's going to see my competitive side eventually. So I'll toss it
Yeah,
out
here it
there
comes.
now. So yeah,
Okay, it's pretty.
the first time I got, what, 3 birds? No, Well, first time I had three
I think it was
birds.
half a bird, with a leg,
No,
maybe a beak,
no.
a full bird. You got a full bird?
I did.
I know that smile. That's the smile of death. Okay. Let's see
Now,
on the shooting range. Yes.
so I started at 3 minutes and I got one bird. And then I think what you're supposed to do is work your way up, but I decided to jump up to 20 minutes right away, obviously being somewhat competitive because you're doing 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And my maximum is four birds in 20 minutes. Maybe we should explain what birds means, though, because people might not know.
Right. You or me?
Go ahead. I think you're better
All
at
right.
explaining it than I am.
So see that stuff out there, the blue stuff? It gets noisy. The muse fits around your head, and then you listen to the app, and it plays different sorts of background music. So I choose the one that has the ocean playing in the background, connected to the biofeedback on your brain activity, basically in your subconscious. And so if there's a whole lot of activity, there's a whole lot of crashing waves, and the more you can calm and focus on breathing, it should calm down, and you should start to hear birds tweeting. And so you get a bird count score and like how many minutes of calm, right? For what level you reach, which is the calm threshold.
Right.
But you get a number of birds.
Right.
And so I think I did a lot more than
What was your
birds.
your very first bird count?
I need to check, but I can tell you, I can guarantee
What's
you.
your high score in 20 minutes?
My high score is 167.
167 birds in 20 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I think my first score was double digits somewhere. There's a brain activity on you.
Peter's crossing the line today.
Oh, he's getting in there.
Yeah. Oh,
Jeez.
Peter, you want to know what? I'm bringing my muse and we're going to toss it on your head and see how you do. Bird count.
Yeah. It's going to be a bird off. It's going to be a bird off.
Yeah.
Let's see if you can calm that machine that's on fire in your head. Let's see if you can get the reins on that baby and slow it down. But yes, actually, thank God it wasn't 1,000 birds, because then there obviously would have been some form of inactivity to worry about. But I think I was kind of striking a good balance there, Pete, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I only
Anyway.
my high score is four birds, which goes to tell everybody that Anne needs to practice meditation. That's about it.
Maybe it could be an idea. That's, four birds. I mean, you've doubled up from it. I think you had two, didn't you? Let's see if you can do my conditioning circuit.
It's going down. Can we Facebook Live that, Pete?
I'll be doing it slowly.
That'd be fun. I'm in, like 100% in.
Right.
Bring it on.
Actually, about 100 birds. 1,000 birds? We're talking about the feathered variety, aren't we?
I imagine he's speaking about hunting. I don't know. I don't know if I'm catching on.
In the backyard. There we go. Yeah, it's in the backyard.
Okay,
Are they
cool.
free birds, or are they locked in the backyard? Right.
Cool.
Okay.
We're gonna have some fun at Peter's house. We need to, we'll get that sorted out.
We're bringing our muses.
We are.
A muse off.
Yeah. We're hopping it on Peter's.
In fact, while we've got the guns, Pete, in the shooting range, Peter has a shooting range. Did you know that?
No.
So we can actually do target practice in the shooting range. So you and I are going to compete not only for birds but for targets.
Okay, I'm gonna toss this out here now on Facebook Live that I'm winning on targets. I might not win on meditation birds, but I'm winning on targets.
Bring it
on.
Bring it.
We can
That
Facebook Live that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
all
on.
Right, Pete. I think you're going to be Pete. You might be cameraman for that session.
I have a tripod. I'll bring the tripod. Can set it up.
And then people have to give us an exercise on how to shoot properly. So,
Right.
In fact, probably best to do that beforehand, so I know which end to point where. All right. Pain. Let's talk about some pain, Anne. And pain of a different kind today.
Yeah, it's funny. So we were chatting with Michelle yesterday, who's working with you a bit, and she said that Blue Monday exists in Australia. And Blue Monday's the most depressing day of the year, right? And I knew it exists. Well, it's kind of a label that we have in Canada. That today is yesterday for you guys, but today for us is considered like Blue Monday or whatever, the darkest day. It's not like literally the darkest day in Canada, but It's the most depressing day of the year generally because, vitamin D levels are low. People have gone broke from Christmas. And I actually thought it was kind of like a
Credit card
Canadian
bills come in.
thing. Yeah, I thought it was a Canadian thing. I didn't know that was a Aussie term as well. She
Right.
mentioned that
Well,
yesterday. I was shocked. I was like, you guys have sun. You guys have vitamin
yeah,
D. I don't get it.
you just gave some more cannon fodder to Pete. I'm just waiting for him to churn out a dig at the Australians on that one. But
Well, I wonder if they have it in New Zealand too. Maybe this is like a worldwide
yeah, maybe
classification definition that we don't.
Black Monday, just in line with the Kiwi colours or something. But Blue Monday. Well, I did kind of feel blue yesterday.
Did you?
Wasn't my best day. Yeah, every day is Blue Day in Australia. There it is.
Boom.
Hey, Pete, you're unpredictable too.
Peter for the win.
There we go. Yeah. Okay. Every day is a blue day in Australia. Well, look, this sort of blue, yes, I can handle. And that blue up there, you get a lot of that, don't you? Down in South Island, wherever it is in Queenstown. So anyway, geez, it's on today.
He is.
Right.
Well, this is actually where I was going to start because actually at this time of the year, clients coming in or clients I'm speaking with generally speak about feeling low. They'll describe, like, oh, I'm feeling low, I'm feeling down, I'm feeling tired, exhausted, fatigued. And I actually thought it was just really a Canadian thing. And maybe like, let's just toss the UK in there because they don't really get much sun. But I thought it was kind of a Canadian thing until Michelle mentioned it yesterday. So I guess I was kind of curious about, what practitioners would be going through on that end in your country. But anyway, that's I guess like a topic for another day. But it does lead me into the fact that I really feel throughout the winter here that people tend to hibernate like bears.
Like bears.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And
so,
they don't go out as much. They don't tend to socialize as much. So it tends to maybe drop during this time of the year. And
there's lots of bears out.
Lots of bears sleeping, which, they're hibernating and, we don't go out as much. For example, we kind of got snowed in this weekend. So you just like don't end up going out as much because it's so cold and gray and I don't know, you just have to dress up and put on so many layers. It becomes a process. And
right.
the more I got thinking about it, and this is why I wanted to talk about it today, I was like, gosh, I think, we tend to take ourselves out of even like relationships during this time of the year, and we tend not to be as social as we would be in the summer months. And I'm just using, weather as an example, but I think it can be a lot of factors, not just weather. It can likely be in regards to just a combination of things, whether people are just exhausted from work and they go home and crash and they don't have necessarily like serving relationships to have deep conversations with. And, I tuned into was it Ben Greenfield? I think it was Ben Greenfield. And he was speaking about having a circle of influence of around 150 people. And then, you hop on,
Dunbar's number. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And that creates, a serving circle of influence for you. And in regards, I'm going to loop this into pain eventually, trust me. But the fact of the matter is, he spoke about, you go on Facebook and you have, how many friends do you have, Tommy, on Facebook?
Oh, geez, it cost me a lot of money. 5,000.
Okay, so you have 5,000. So you have 5,000
yeah.
friends on Facebook, right? And how many of those people are you actually communicating? Do you?
Oh yeah.
No way.
Yeah, I've been out with all by name because I know everything that's going on in their lives every day. Nice.
Don't believe it. Exactly.
Yeah, no.
So here's the thing.
Past the first 100, 150, I think so.
Right. So that's the thing. He sorry, I'm laughing at Peter's comment. Peter's about influence. Awesome. I'm so happy you're my friend, Peter. Fantastic.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, I'll give you that. I'm going to give you that one, Pete.
Peter, you are in my circle. You don't know it yet, but you're in there. So, the thing is this, oftentimes I'm thinking, as a practitioner, I guess you see someone for an hour, right? And this is kind of what we gauge it on, but I've dug into it on a little bit of a deeper level, and actually had some good chats with some of my private clients who would, be overseas and things like that. And I'm kind of like, who are you communicating with on a daily basis? And they go into like, oh, well, I have this many friends on Facebook and this many followers on Twitter. And I'm like, yes, but that's not an energy exchanging relationship.
Yep.
And they'd wonder why they don't necessarily feel loved, right? Or they don't feel like they have serving relationships in their life, and they feel lonely, and they just aren't necessarily knowing where to go next. And I think you passed it on to me, but Ben Greenfield's podcast on this was awesome, because he spoke about
the connecting one.
When you're touched, you release oxytocin, right? And that's like your love hormone. You feel loved, and even it plays a role in bonding with people. And oftentimes I wonder, just the way society is, if sometimes at work some people could give out the odd hug rather than just being so cold and, let's say, corporate like. There's movements around the world, right? Like Free Hug Day and all this kind of stuff, which I find cool, but it's actually having the deep relationship and human contact that would technically release it. And I got chatting with a few people, because I used to work hands-on, and I wondered sometimes if some of my clients were actually really depending on my services due to this reason, because I could tell that they were lonely. I could tell that they were
after your oxytocin, or
they're after maybe creating their own, right? Not necessarily.
I hope that's all they were after, Anne.
I hope so too. Gosh.
Well, we could go there.
Maybe not. Maybe not today.
Not today. Okay, fine. Right. So yes. So now you work hands off. Is that what you're saying?
Well, okay. So sorry. Treating people for alignment. Gosh, that came out wrong. What is wrong with me today? Oh my God.
I don't know. Too much oxytocin going on. Yeah. All right. Go on.
I think so. So anyway, rather than sitting in like an adrenaline state or a cortisol state that is constantly sorry. I'm not keeping it professional today. Gosh, I didn't even catch on.
I feel like I've just been told off by the teacher. So, thanks, Pete, for keeping it in line. Right, yeah. Let's get serious and boring, please, Anne.
Okay. Oh man. Okay. So so generally, a combination of nerve and hormone signals. Gosh, I'm losing my train of thought today. Jeez, I almost swore too. Anyway,
oxytocin will do that to you.
Yeah, apparently. I can talk about that in a moment, but generally where I find people and they have lower back pain and they're working, in the adrenals, which are located, lower back region, and you touch there and it's so sensitive. And I'm talking about actually alignment, touching people. Sorry guys, just to clarify. I used to be a hands-on practitioner.
You're doing this from a kinesiology
and osteo. It was pure,
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So, this isn't,
Look, no hands. Right, okay, go on.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, that's what's happened. No wonder.
No,
my God.
Anyway, okay. No, Peter, I'm not high.
Yeah. Just high on oxytocin.
Apparently, yeah. So I guess what I was saying, when you would go into they say, oh, my back's sensitive, and they point to the place, and you're sitting there, you're like, gosh, that's right where the adrenals are located. And they've really, you could say they were just, releasing surges of hormones, and actually, maximum adrenaline and cortisol. I'm keeping it together here. So...
Sorry.
Gosh.
Continue. I'm just going to have fun on the side here, Anne.
You're not helping.
All right. Sorry. I'm serious.
So the fact of the matter is they sit in these states on a daily basis where they're maximizing the release of hormone signals of, like, let's say cortisol and adrenaline. and just completely draining out the producers of that. So that's when kind of like adrenal fatigue comes into play. And I can actually relate to that for a story. But then, you know, on the flip side of that, when you have love and compassion and when you have love and compassion and you know, and you have the human contact, you actually get that, you know, that oxytocin release amongst other things as well, which makes you feel absolutely loved. And, you know, it comes down to like oxytocin is also released in women more so when, you know, when they're being intimate and breastfeeding and during childbirth and things like that, because they get that like loving, like attachment feeling, if that makes sense. So,
Right.
you know, it really plays a role just to play that over and then like take that back a step and like put it into everyday life and sit back and be like, okay, so can you release oxytocin through looking at your Facebook friends? No. Can you release adrenaline? I don't know, maybe a bit, I don't know, but are you actually having that contact on a daily basis? Is yours more like adrenaline cortisol based or is it more oxytocin based? And I bet you people watching on here, minus Peter because he's perfect, would say that he's definitely more, people are more sitting the adrenaline cortisol based on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
And that's just going to show that we're not really in like the rest and digest area. We're not, our society's kind of trained us to sit in the adrenaline cortisol way of life where and so no wonder people have pain because they're draining all of those hormone resources and and then, you know, they're coming back into the fact that they have pain because, you know, eventually what the body's going to do is send you a message or the brain's going to, you know, notice a message and say, okay, you know, there's pain here. I'm going to tell you that. Do something about it. And then that's when people will come to me. But it's so funny because people will come based on a structural component, but then...
Which is like an end result, isn't it?
It's the end, it is the end result.
Right, there's other stuff happening behind the scenes that cause all those hormones to keep smashing something. I don't know, but it's like the end result.
It is the end result, and it's like, gosh, have you not noticed your daily trends, and what you're doing on a daily basis? And you know, I used to work with private clients, and I think I'd mentioned this to you. Like they were hedge fund owners, and you know, it would just be go go go. How much money can you make? How high can you go? How much can you compete with, like, you know, the next person? So like just even me saying that, people are probably like, whoa, that's overwhelming. Yeah, no kidding. And then imagine like what it's playing in their body that way. So I mean, gosh, like I think people really disregard who they're communicating with on a daily basis and how important that is to your body and your pain, right?
Yeah it's like we become so you know, IQ, left brain, yang, I guess, focus on the whole system of the corporate world. And part of the reason I certainly don't miss it and left it was that you're in this system, in this machine. I mean, the whole world's kind of geared like this where, you know, you're feeling like you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger all the time. And, you know, that was great when you needed to get out of trouble, right? But when, you know, and then back in the cave days, it kept you alive. Now, it's like had that constantly on. It's like having the Formula One race car and you've got the pedal to the metal for the whole race. You're either going to crash a damn thing or it's going to blow up or something's going to happen. And we seem to be doing that ourselves. And it's starting to manifest in the form of pain from constant inflammation. It's perhaps a symptom of something. And in fact, that's not the end game. The end game can be that you got that constant inflammation, that it gets to be something more serious.
Right.
I guess.
And then, you know, pop that into your everyday life. Are you surrounding yourself with people who are very adrenaline driven? Right. So if you're around those people consistently, and I can hone in on that because, you know, being in the sports world for so long, it is a very adrenaline driven scenario. You know, it's always like, you know, who can you be better than? And it's always the comparison in the competition, like that releases adrenaline like crazy. So no wonder. And I don't know if I agree with, you know, the so-called diagnosis of adrenal fatigue. I'm just going to say that I drained my energy resources, period. And I crashed at some point because of it, because it was just, it got to be too much. And actually, I never crashed when I was playing soccer. I crashed when I was working. When I ended up treating too many people, likely because it's, you know, a lot to think about and provide at the same time. It's very physical. Don't take this the wrong way, people. But you know, you're manipulating like the spine and the body and things like that. And
Postie on the go.
yeah.
What sort of service you're running there?
Oh God, please, oh no, no.
Is that
None.
for adrenal dysregulation? All right.
Mhm.
All right.
I
Let's get
agree. I
serious.
agree, Peter, on that
Yeah.
because, and that's the other thing, you get diagnosed and say, oh, you have adrenal fatigue. And then people start to kind of live that scenario too. They're like, oh, well, I have adrenal fatigue. I'm always tired. And they're constantly playing that story in their head rather than saying, okay, so what can I eliminate from my day to recover?
Right.
And who can I surround myself with to get out of my stressful environment on a daily basis? And the real answer is the who, because we need human contact, and the way society's going is very digital. And
Totally.
at some point,
And
people
go
really
on.
crave that, and they need it, right? Like, it's
Well, they get hooked on it, right? On that buzz.
yeah.
I did. I thought I was happy because I was buzzed on adrenaline and cortisol. Hence why, and I meditate and get up to 167 birds.
Are you seriously
break
rubbing that in on
cycle.
me?
No, I just thought it was a great opportunity to message that back in. That go and build a flock, I guess.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Flock up.
I'm working on it. I'm not there. And it's so funny because I guess I've been conditioned so much to compete and constantly physically improve myself, right? And mentally, to some extent, I've been working on that for the past few years too.
This one from Pete's interesting. Sorry. Did you say?
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that in a second. So, I think really what it comes down to, like creating my flock of birds, is retraining, the brain, the brain component of it, because I was taught and conditioned to physically move forward and
push
everything.
yourself to the limit.
Right. So it's
Keep moving forward.
Right. And that's how I would improve. But then, you sit me in a room and put a Muse headband on me and I get 4 birds in 20 minutes. Yeah.
It's like, now you got to find the off switch. Where the hell is that?
And it's funny because my thought process during that is like, gosh, I wish I had more birds.
More birds. Where's the bloody birds? Give me some frickin' birds.
And then I get a bird.
I want birds right now. And then I need to go and find these birds.
Yeah, or like, how can I get these birds, right? And so I'll get one bird and it'll tweet, if anyone's ever done this. So it tweets, right? And one bird tweets, I'm like, yes. And I'm just like, yes, I got a bird. And then obviously the birds don't stay because I'm too excited that I got birds. So it's just like,
let's get out of here.
These birds are like, And if you heard the waves, because I actually have the beach sound on mine too, my waves aren't so calm all the time.
A tsunami of waves.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm working on it.
Point. Right.
You can feel the difference when doing manual therapy on positive. Yes, 110%. Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more. And it's like, it's that saying, right? That old school saying that you can cut the tension with a knife in a room when you walk in.
Right.
And I think, after working with people for so long, you can kind of just feel the difference between someone who's had like a really rotten day and someone who's had a really great day. And to be honest, generally people who I've worked with have had a series of really bad days or years or, big life events, right?
You're talking about mixing. Sorry, go on.
And I mean, that just, going into it, I think from a practitioner point of view, it's just like the awareness that you have to bring into it and almost definitely not eat up what they're putting down all the time, right? And sometimes it's more of a mental change in them that will end up morphing the physicality of their body and their tissues over time. And I said something about that last week. I said, people that come in with structural stuff, I try to help them understand that there's always an emotional component, whether it's 90 to 10% or I don't know, 50-50. You don't really know, but if the emotional component, and we could say positive, negative people, if you're constantly thinking negatively, the tissue is still going to reshape back to always how it is. But if you rechange the way you're feeding that tissue through this, right, it's going to change how you're operating on a daily basis and therefore change the structure as well. And that's something that I think society somehow thinks that the structure is separate from the brain. I don't know how, but we're attached, and everything filters through here and projects out below. And I mean, there's obviously cases of trauma and things like that on the body and surgeries where I would take a different approach. But like for your general person just coming in and, you know, suffering from being, let's say, lonely, and they have pain everywhere because they're just, you know, drained. They're drained, they're lonely,
Right.
they don't have stable relationships in their life, they're moody, they're negative, you know, like it
Right.
all kind of adds up. So, I mean, anyway, that was kind of where I was
So
going with
yeah,
that.
look, I get it. And like you talk about the practitioners before and having to deal with that and how you can kind of Teflon it to a degree. But then when you have like the suicide rate of psychiatrists that are dealing with this negative shit day in, day out, right?
I don't know the
It
rate of
kills
that.
people.
I know the rate was quite
It's
high for
big.
medical doctors in the US. I read something on that, you know, the
Okay.
medical doctors going through
Interesting.
school. Yeah, just through
Huh.
school.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
it's quite stressful.
Jeez.
And they're asked to provide for humanity, which I find
Right. That's kind of weird.
so.
But
And you want to
what's
know what?
interesting though is
As a
how you talk.
practitioner, I did
Yeah.
the same thing. Sorry.
So you got. You're going to say? What were you saying?
Oh, I just said that I did the same thing to
Is it?
myself. You know, you get out and you
Right.
want to build your practice and you want to build your clientele, so you just end up treating as many people as you can without kind of doing the whole self-care
Can and
component, and that's massive.
right.
So I had to
Driving yourself
almost
into the
go
ground.
down the yeah, I almost had to learn from that and then, you know, step into a better place and a better path for sure.
Right.
Sorry,
But
I
it was
cut you
interesting
off.
how you started to connect. That's right. The negative pain aspect to it manifesting once again in the body. And I know we've touched on this in the past, but then connecting and where you started with like oxytocin and how that's the love drug. And there's a lot of pain that can be alleviated through people connecting together. Like if I look
Yeah.
at, where I've sort of built my mandala on middleagedmillennial.com, one of the areas is connection or connecting.
Right.
Now, and I think, and you're a connector in PH 360, right? In Personal Health 360.
Yeah.
So you're naturally going to produce a lot of oxytocin. I know, how's that going for you, by the way? I know that as I said, a lot of things that I've read says that connecting socially is so important. And otherwise, you start getting emotional pain. You get the emotional pain, it's going to start to manifest physically at some stage.
Yeah,
Right?
doesn't
Some form of sickness.
PH360 have a section on that? I think they do. It's called social. And
They do.
they go
Yes.
over exactly, you know, generally what your genotype would socially fit into. I mean, there's always outliers. There's always people who don't express that, let's say. But
Right.
generally they would sit in a place like that. So that's huge because if you're meant to be more of a social person and you love being around people and you're sitting in a cubicle all day, you might not have that social connection and that feeling of love and human contact on a daily basis. And you might not
So if
even
you
know that you need that, right? Like
right.
it's the
So if you
awareness that needs to come into it.
well, it's interesting because like you get a lot of people that have built digital businesses now, and they can do it from anywhere on their own
Yeah.
forever, making money and not connecting with everybody. But digital connection versus that, and I know Greenfield mentioned this as well. That physically being in front of somebody is so much more different when it's in analog. And as far as kicking off oxytocin, right? And I think who was he saying? It produces GDF11. Pete, this is probably your area. And GDF11, which increases longevity as well.
Well, there's always those stories
Upbringing
too
plays a
when
huge part.
people die from like a broken heart, right? When their partner, their
Oh
elderly partner
yeah,
dies and they die shortly after, unfortunately. And you know, it comes down, I
right,
think, to like the
right.
loneliness factor of that. And I mean, I'm sure Peter can muster up some science behind that, but it just goes to
Yeah,
show that, you know, the relationships with others is huge. And I think, you know, as a very tech society, because tech's like the #1 growing thing worldwide, right? We need to
yeah.
draw awareness to actually creating human contact and moving forward from there. And I'm going to say this on another point, creating a relationship with yourself as well is massive, because oftentimes people will look externally and say, okay, so, you know, I like having relationships with all these people. They serve me. I like being around them, but I still don't feel very, you know, happy and satisfied with my life. And that comes down to, you know, how you view yourself as well. And there's a massive component there that I like to dig into with my clients if they're ready. Some of them don't see it that way, and that's okay. But, you know, you know, sometimes I say,
but meditation's a good one for that one.
yeah, it can be. And journaling, just get your thoughts out on paper and see some trends that are coming by. And you and I both know that works well.
It does.
Yeah.
2 years. I think you've been doing it for 2 years as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's been huge, actually. I think it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, positive change in my life has been due to journaling each day.
Likewise.
Monday to Fridays.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you know, external relationships are massive, and seeing if they're serving you or not serving you. So generally when I'm going through with my clients, sometimes they're like, you know, but like I have to work with this group of people and so on. And it's kind of like, are you 100% sure you have to? Because generally I think society and work makes us think that we have to do things. But sometimes like it's worth saying no, you know,
you get judged, you know, by the rest of society. Not being normal.
Right.
What's normal? I mean, now, what's being normal now is being fat. Being fat has become normal.
Yeah, sure.
So, cool. Yeah, okay. Good. I'm normal.
Being fat and complaining about your pain, because everybody has pain, and oh my God, and I have to complain about it. It's like, well, if you just, yeah. And it's like, well, not really. Like if you just sat back and understood that, yes, you're going to have pain throughout your life. That's inevitable. Like everyone will, but it's how you take it and deal with it and reshape yourself to go forward is a big game changer on that one. So I don't know. I mean, there's many people that I've worked with in that regards, but there's one story that really stood out to me. And it's actually when we ended up, Canada ended up taking in a bunch of immigrants from Syria. I don't know how many years ago that was now. A few years ago. Yeah. And that was all over the news and everything like that. And I actually set up a little clinic on the side to treat these people for free, because I thought, hey, you know, imagine what these guys have gone through, right? Like their families, a lot of them came over as families without the dad. The dads were there, and so it was the mom, the children, and you know, the moms were under quite a bit of stress because you have children to take care of. You're coming to a new country. Some of them were coming in the winter and had never experienced winter in their life. And so, you know, just imagine having to pick up all your stuff and rehouse yourself in like a week, right? Like it's not that you get to like pack everything up nicely, toss it in a suitcase. And some of the stuff they weren't coming over with much stuff. So, you know, when I would speak to them, there was obviously like a very big cultural barrier there that had to that I had to work with for sure, because they weren't even wanting care in a very compassionate way. They were scared and they were in pain, and they could describe their pain and communicate it with me, but it was taking the step in the right.
Emotional or physical?
Both.
Emotional or physical pain?
Both. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now connected. A lot of times it's sort of connected, the emotional pain with the physical pain.
Right.
Are they linked a lot of the time?
Well, there's always a percentage of one and the other, no matter what. Like from what I've seen. And you know, I felt for them, and gosh, it's kind of like, you know, we go through our everyday lives, just like talking about Facebook and how, oh, well, we're not connected with people because we have Facebook. Like there's some really extreme cases out there too, that people have to endure that really reshape. And I often think, you know, when you're walking down the street and you see someone who's maybe a little bit angry or upset or whatever, we're like, oh, well, they're in a bad mood. I don't want to hang out with them, right? And instead it's maybe like, hey, you know, I hope your day gets better, right? Like it's a really like, it's a big perspective shift that I think everyone needs to understand, because you never know what kind of pain that person will be in, period.
Right.
And I've worked with some vets too, Peter. Actually, I didn't see his whole comment. I can't, but yeah, vets have some. They see stuff.
Vets need
the
a lot
everyday
of support.
person does
coming
too.
Back with serious issues. Yeah, a lot of it's partly due to toxicity, and I imagine you're talking toxicity in a metaphoric sense there, Pete, with just the whole environment, let alone chemically what's perhaps going on, but you know, just the whole negative toxicity around, you know, death, and unnecessary death. That's very un-oxytocin-like. You know, maybe more dopamine, or maybe not even dopamine. Well, which hormone's going to drive that one? I don't know.
But that's the other
getting back
thing
to the
too. That's
oxytocin piece.
Oh, sorry, but I was gonna say, like, that's
Go
kind
on,
of why
sorry.
people have animals too, right? Like, they'll start to build relationships with, animals because they make them, like, that's an oxytocin release. You feel love from an animal. It's compassion. It's a
Right.
connection for
Yeah.
you. So it's like we do as humans, we find other ways to make those connections. It's not necessarily just with humans.
Yep.
And generally, you'll get people who are animal lovers who are probably high connectors as well. I'm one of them.
Right.
I love being around
There we
animals,
go.
and
Right.
yeah, yeah, and I like cuddling and petting them
So,
and whatever. Yeah, not killing them, Peter.
right.
Anyway,
Okay. There we go.
yeah.
Explains why can so many animals cross the blood. Oh, yeah. So it's actually actual toxicity, like chemically, there's an issue. Vets and where the environment they're hanging around, let alone the emotional toxicity. Okay, so double whammy. How's oxytocin playing out for you, Anne, in your life? Have you sort of recognised it? Anything
I have.
with experiences you have, like in your professional life and whatever? I mean, you know, you were talking about some customers before, and maybe some of them coming in for oxytocin rather than for treatment of their issues. I don't know.
Well, I noticed, so I moved my practice from like the hands-on treatment and alignment to really into like more of a coaching role. And I ended up with a lot of one-on-one clients. And these were the clients who were continuously in adrenaline, cortisol, just like rocking out the sympathetic system like crazy, and just completely
Right,
drained and
right.
crashing, but thought it was normal.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, when I got a hold of them, obviously, I think when I started working with them, there's obviously a level of compassion that I provide because it's online.
Right.
But at some point, I'm wondering if they did become dependent on me because I definitely have, that more of that
Well,
role of bonding
you
with
made them
people
feel
and
good.
things like
You
exactly.
made them
And
feel good.
and
Right.
and so people will gravitate towards that for sure, and perhaps not even consciously realize that they're doing that.
Right.
When I guess someone's like, people say like, oh, I was just like attracted to that person. I had to go talk to them, right? Like there is like a level of understanding that I don't think we actually are conscious of on a daily basis, and that happens. And I've seen that with clients. They become somewhat dependent because they're not able to fit into that role themselves on a daily basis, or they don't necessarily have the love and compassion in their life that they're searching for. So
So
yes,
you become their mum to a degree, in a way. I mean, if you're
yeah,
whoever is oxytocin overloaded, whatever, but if you're predominantly acting on oxytocin and people are picking that vibe up, then they're going to be
right.
drawn to it, I guess.
Exactly. And now the coaching that I'm doing is more, yeah, I definitely still show compassion and things like that, but it's not as one-on-one, it's with groups. And I find that doesn't happen as much. They're generally more accountable. But I'm still coaching them through their pain and helping them understand that and so on. But the one-on-one, you really get to know that client because you're speaking with them daily. So obviously, you're building up quite a relationship with them as well, which is fine. But at some point, that's going to be, it's going to end. They're going to have to learn how to be sustainable on their own. And that can be difficult,
Right.
right? Mm-hmm. And, there's a flip side of that too. There's the practitioners that just don't care. And people don't like those practitioners because they're like, I just don't feel like they cared about me. And I've heard that a million times. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I can understand because they probably really didn't give you like the love and compassion that you need. So it goes both ways.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Pain comes in many shapes and sizes. What about yourself and pain? any stories you've got there? I mean, you've obviously competed in sport at the elite level. Whatever you are or not willing to share in your personal life, being a professional, but emotional pain.
I'll say this: when I'm in Australia,
issues.
we'll do a live together, and we'll revisit this topic. And
wow, okay, that's a deal.
Deal.
Pete, did you hear that? Look at that on record.
Yeah.
And of course, 5 cats and 2 dogs are better than 1,000 Australians. You're hanging with the wrong crowd, dude.
What
I don't
about
know which Aussies you're hanging about with?
What about Canadians? I'm sure Peter loves Canadians.
Oh yeah. Wait for the next comment. I'm waiting to see this.
Already crossed
that line. You're talking about Canada, or what are you talking about?
Who knows? Anyway, I guess.
Right.
Gosh, speaking from like an athletic perspective, and in the past, there's one story that actually popped up into my head when you were chatting about this. And I remember doing a transition from one team to another, and 2 totally different coaching styles. I had one coach who was just like constantly on me, just like yelling and just very in your face kind of coaching style, which is kind of traditional, I guess. I think, some coaches actually do get through to players that way, but I happen to not be one of them.
Right.
And then I ended up switching to another team, and I had this fantastic coach who, instead of dictating and yelling, he explained, right? There's a difference. And he kind of would speak about, okay, let's change the strategy for this, or are you able to do this? And so on. So I guess, the whole point behind that, just that scenario in general, is I became a better player on team 2 than I did on team 1. And I'm sure everyone is sitting here like, well, that's obvious. But the fact of the matter is, it didn't come down to my skill level improving at all. It came down to the fact that I was more calm when I would play. I was more focused. I wasn't so, I guess, in my head, so to speak. And then, that comes back to feeling like you're, rather than constantly being pushed away. And I wonder how often that scenario happens in life, in the workplace, on sports teams. I would imagine that probably everyone watching here has a story about that, to some extent, of just feeling like you don't belong there. And, gosh, I was like getting paid to play on that team, and I still felt like I didn't belong, just because of the way information was being delivered, I guess, and the way I was receiving it. Because had I maybe been a little bit older and mature, I would have been able to express, like, I don't really like, I don't really receive information well that way, and so on. But I just didn't have the awareness level at a young age to be able to do that. Now I would, for sure, but I wasn't mature enough at that point. So, yeah.
Yet it still made you an international player in the soccer world, right?
But I had some great coaches supporting that and recognizing, I think, where my deficit was and working on that. Because like I said in the beginning, when we talked about Muse and birds and all this stuff, I'll work my way to get birds, like on a physical standpoint. And I'm happy to work my way to get the birds. But when it comes down to the mental component, which plays a massive role in athletics and sport, that was a part that I lacked and that I'd never been taught. And that, honestly, I didn't even know existed to a certain point. Yeah, you kind of have to let the go get. It sounds weird.
You got to let
I wasn't
go to
really
get the
aware.
birds. It's like counterintuitive.
It is, yeah. You want to.
Don't go chasing the birds. Let them come.
You can't force it, right? And every time I get excited that I got a bird on Muse, I'm like, yes, I got a bird, and then all the birds go away.
You stay here. I'm going to go and get another one. Right. So
remember the first time I messaged you, I was like, I got one bird, and you were like, oh, congratulations. I had like 100 and something.
That, after 3 seconds? Yeah, that's what you said. How many did you get? I think I got recently about 130, and oh my God, did I see the competitive side coming through then?
I was like, it's on.
It's on. Said, okay, I'll see you next year sometime. Okay.
I will update my bird count next week, and it will be better, for sure.
It's going to be a bird off. Every week it's going to be a bird off now. And everybody's going to know. Yeah,
how many birds I have.
So I want to know, we've got Stephen Head, Peter Roos, and Troy, and whoever else watching. Any sort of emotional, and we now have Amanda Brown Tester. Whoa, we can sex it up now. Now we can really sex it up. We've got Amanda on. Amanda, we're talking about emotional pain. This kind of would connect into the stuff that you do as well. But yeah, any stories from people watching around emotional pain and perhaps how you learned that they may be manifested into physical pain as well. Please bring it.
Yeah, I think the thing is we're so geared towards the structure, just because the medical system is geared towards the structure. If there's a problem here, you fix the problem there, right? Like it's very black and white.
Treat the symptom.
Exactly. But the fact of the matter is it's always going to be a mix of structural and emotional to whatever percentage it is in your body. You can't really put a number on that, I would say, but there always is I don't know if I want to say emotional component, but like more of a mindset component per se. There's one story that pops into mind of a client I worked with who had traumas when she was a child. And she'd been holding on to those emotional traumas and kind of living the story of being traumatized as a child for her whole life. And she was 25. So think about that. 25 years of, constantly having your guard up. Like that's going to release some serious like hormonal signals, right? And she wondered why. Actually, she was trying to have her first child.
Survival mode.
Yeah, she was trying to have her first child. She was told she was infertile. And that's when she came to see me, and I'm kind of like, gosh, like, we need to like get the nervous system on par here. And, what do you know? We work on it for a year and she has a little baby. So that's cool. I don't think we're taught to work backwards that way. And it's important to say, okay, I'm here now, but what are some stories that I've been living in the past and how can I change them and how can I change them mentally and structurally? It's massive. So the fact of the matter. Did I say the fact of the matter?
I don't know. All right, Pete, you're going to have to explain that one to us.
Peter, I don't even have a TV, so whatever. I don't watch CNN. I have no idea. Like I don't. We're in Canada. What? No, I don't.
You don't have TVs in Canada?
Nope.
Okay, fine. Right. Okay. Wow, strange place.
It is a weird place.
So, yeah. What was I going to say? Damn. Off the tracks.
Maybe you have an oxytocin high.
Oh, there it is. One back at me. Maybe I do. Damn. Right, thrown off the tracks again. Thanks, Matt. Let me read this comment to get me out of jail here. She won't be programmed with crap. That's it. So what I was going to say, thanks for reminding me.
Nothing happens on the news in Canada anyway. Yeah, we actually we get American news, and I think Canadian news isn't that exciting.
We got snow.
I don't think
today we got more snow. Oh, today.
And there's a moose and a bear.
And there's more snow. Right.
Actually,
another stuck car.
Yeah, it's like snowstorm coming, minus 30 degree weather, snowstorm coming. It's kind of like that trend in the winter, and that's it.
You can give me this any day. I'm sorry, but I'm picking this. Hey, great for that week over Christmas. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. Fine, but
there was a moose attack yesterday.
Hang on, the moose was attacked, or the moose
attacked? Yeah, well, they attack, they charge. If you're in its way, yeah. If it's a gosh, I don't even know what a mom moose is called. If it's a mother moose,
mama moose.
There's a name for it.
Hey, look, I was gonna hook back into what Pete was saying early on. The hockey game.
In this hockey game, you guys are really clichéing me out over here.
There we go. Woohoo! Yeah, we got the comedians jumping out from the crowd occasionally.
Nice.
Getting back to conditioning, you were talking about this point of only attack Australians. Yeah, what do you think? We're out away from everybody. Yeah, you guys aren't far off. So. Conditioning from when you're brought up, and if you don't know any better, then how do you know what even a relaxed state is?
Yeah, right? Actually, there's a really good story that comes to mind that is not me, that's you.
I just got to hide for a moment. Yeah, sorry, go on.
We don't have police in Canada. We don't need them, you know. I'm kidding.
Yeah, they're all frozen. Go on.
Yeah, they're all in their dog sled somewhere. Now I'm being really clear.
Right.
Okay, so
At the pub.
actually, I had a client who came in who was spanked as a child, and constantly. So when she did something bad, she got spanked, and you know, this led to like other stories happening in her life and so on. There was like obviously some sort of like sexual abuse stories like throughout her life and so on. And when we sat down and had a chat, she was really honed in on the sexual abuse story. But when we dug a little bit deeper, she'd been hanging on to some tensions in regards to her childhood, and you know how she would react to men, and how she would shape herself on a daily basis in regards to interacting with men. And as soon as we started chatting about it, I was kind of like, I wonder. And, you know, this doesn't all happen in one session, by the way. This was over quite a long period of time, because I would never expect anyone to pop in on their first session and share their life story, although those people exist too. But you know, it took some deep dives that she had to do. And she's like, you know, I think I've been living this like fear story of being around men, and she was scared of her boss and so on, and he was male. And the whole point is, yes, there is like the treatment component, but when you start to speak about something that you're potentially holding in your body, and your brain knows it, it's just, you got to get it out, then you can actually start to deal with it. So she was actually talking about, okay, you know, I was uncomfortable with this as a child. I didn't like it, and I dreaded it, and I felt you know, like unsafe and so on. So she was in a really unsafe place. And then therefore, you know, looping back into our topic today, not having those serving relationships as a child, which a child needs to grow in a emotional, healthy state. They need that safety. That's, you know, step one. So I often think people will hone in and say, oh, you know, my work is hurting me, or I went to the gym and that's hurting me. And they'll look at the everyday sort of thing. But the fact is, the fact of the matter, Pete, is that we all have stories from, you know, when we were children and when we were raised. And it does play a large role in our reactions and how we interact with people on a daily basis, what relationships we choose, who we choose to surround ourselves with. And that's why I wanted to hone in on relationships today, because I thought, hey, you know, I would love if people actually sat back and say, I wonder who are the top 10 people that I interact with on a daily basis, and make a list. And, you know, circle the ones that are actually serving you and see which ones aren't. Because if people make that list, they're probably like, oh, geez, you know, there's people on here that I don't really need in my life because, they aren't serving me. Or they don't make me feel good, or they have negative impact on my life instead of positive. And that plays a massive role in how our tissues are shaped in our body, and how we react and constantly release hormones, and you know, even, gosh, how our digestive system works. It goes into everything, and how our nerves work and control our body that way. So it's deeper, I think, than we think. You know, everyone thinks, oh yeah, you know, just like have this relationship, but really dig deep and think about that. That's massive. The people that you interact with exchanges energy with you on a daily basis. So that's something
getting back,
yeah.
That's getting back to the point that Peter was making too. You know, it's like with negative people, and it's like such a drain. Until you become abnormal, so to speak, until you take that personal risk and do what you think you should do, which then starts to put you into a minority, you are getting sucked into that same plane. If it's not for you, it's slowly going to kill you, I guess, over time.
Well, that's the other thing. People are scared to be an outlier.
Expression as well.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, scared to be themselves, which means you might look like an outlier just being yourself, being a leader, being a, you know, someone, Einstein. I mean, the guy was an outlier.
Right? Yeah.
But so brilliant, you know?
Peter just mentioned the vagus nerve, and yes, you know, and I'm sure Peter's quite familiar in how it works. And the vagus nerve got a good reputation, and a lot of publicity because of yoga, because people started to go to yoga, and I'm all for yoga. Like, fine, if that floats your boat, that's great. But
it's like meditation, really?
I don't participate in yoga. Like, I rather kind of do my own little stretching routine and so on. But I actually think that's why people.
What if it was competitive yoga? Would you be in?
If it gives me birds.
Maybe it'll give you 5,000 Maharishi Mahesh yogis or something. I don't know.
Only if I get birds. If people are tuning in now, they're like, what is she talking about? What are birds? Oh, man, they'll have to backtrack and look at that. But, I do think that's why people depend on yoga, right? Because they'll go and they'll get that so-called, release and calmness and find the calmness, which I do find is great. However, can you create it on your own is the question that I've always asked my clients. It's like, do you need to depend on a class for the rest of your life to actually, calm down your whole nervous system? Or are you able to train yourself on your own? And ideally, it's figuring out a way to do that for yourself. And yoga doesn't necessarily do that for everyone. I don't like yoga classes. It's not my thing, but Peter, I guess, is into stretching. I actually love stretching too, and just honing in on my own breath that way. And I wouldn't call it yoga at all. I would call it stretching, and focusing and noticing parts of my body that are quite tight, and just understanding if I need to go for alignment or what I need to do, and really thinking about maybe what my last week has been like. And, oh gosh, I had a really stressful day there. It was a little bit overwhelming for me. Maybe I need to kind of revisit that and see what happened and see if I'm hanging on to something or not. Right.
So, look, getting to, there's a comment made earlier by Matt Atanasio around, the good old saying of no pain, no gain.
I lived in that world for a long time.
What's yours? Gosh. Right, you did, didn't you? Right? How'd that work for you?
I played through so much pain. 2 knee surgeries. There you go. Playing through pain, you're going to end up having a... it's so funny. I wish I was educated enough as a young kid, teenager, I guess, when I started playing soccer seriously. I wish I was educated enough to know of, when you're stretching and you feel tightness and tension in a place that... Yeah. You don't just stretch it out, and hope it gets better. It's kind of like that's just a starting point of something that you should recognize to change, right? But it's always like, play through the pain, and you're not tough, and you'll lose your spot if you
push
don't.
Through it.
And it gets competitive for a hierarchical. Did I say that right? Like the hierarchy for your position.
Survival of the fittest.
Right, it is. And are you there?
Well, you there? Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I think I
that snowstorm.
Yeah, we're supposed to get some pretty bad weather. Peter said no pain, no gain. Actually, one of my good coaches and rehab specialists would say no pain, no pain. It just should be, no pain, no pain.
No pain.
If you're not having pain in that area, everything should be, functioning properly, but we'll still, do preventative sort of measures, which is interesting. I remember complaining about knee pain way in the back, like way back when I was, I had to have been like 15. Where I was having those pains already, and I played through so much pain, and I was pulling my hamstring constantly, and I can remember being injured time and time again, right? And it's like those little injuries are a message for you to prevent and actually hone in on your body and understand it better is huge. I wish I had a class in high school even saying, this is how your body's connected. If you're feeling knee pain, it might not just be the knee there's a problem with. You might want to look up into the hip and lower back region, right? Like there's a whole bunch of your digestive system is in there too. And, are you getting the rest that you need? Like these things are so important for young kids. And now I'm getting back into like why I don't like the education system. But anyway, but they're so important for young kids to learn in order to prevent. Like, I don't think people want to live in pain. So, I mean, off topic
Right.
because it was about relationships that we're supposed to be talking about.
Relationships.
Now I'm like talking about the education
Well,
system, but yeah. But
that's our relationship with pain
yeah, the
as
other
well.
thing too
Yeah.
is like also, if I were to touch on the education system, because that's a hot topic, but
Yep.
if I were to touch on that, oftentimes, I
Well,
look at,
you are a teacher as well. I mean, it's
yeah,
like I mean, you've been in the system, so you're not shooting from
right.
the outside. You've been
And
in it.
and here's the thing. I wish, looking back, that I could have provided um, more for the kids that I had, but I couldn't because as a teacher, I was pulled in so many different directions. And I look and,
Right.
I think people have various points of views on this, but I look at teachers and they're drained. And, and going back to relationships, no wonder they can't like really create solid relationships with every student they have because they just don't have the time. And
Right.
they're overworked and they're,
Are they?
constantly, I would say the
I mean,
ones
from
that
the
really,
outside, people sort of say, "Oh, they've got 2 weeks holidays with the kids, and then they take all of Christmas off. They've got the 2 months like the kids." I mean, it's like, how hard is that?
I mean, there's all that background work, right? Like I remember as a phys ed teacher, yes, you have your classes to teach. And then, you have report cards and then parent teacher interviews, and then you take them on field trips. And I ran like a camping program to teach them like outdoor survival skills. And gosh, I was thinking I coached teams. So, my days would be from like 7 to 7 easily. But also I was a teacher that wanted to put in the effort for the kids as well. So I think, it
Right.
depends on their point of view and
Yes.
how they take their job. You can be anything. It can be probably the 8 to 3 type job, but, over time, I totally understand why teachers need that 2 week break. They need to recover. So they're not off, getting sick and things like that for the year, because they probably just exhausted all of the fuel, so to speak, if
Right.
they're
Yeah.
really doing
To,
their job, I guess.
to Peter's point, here is like young kids need 6 to 8 hours a day activity every day, and wonder why the kids have ADD
Oh
in
my God.
schools.
I have such a good story for you,
Right.
Peter.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Well, go on. Let's hear it then.
Well, did I tell this last week or did I tell it to you? I don't remember. I went to a seminar, an ADD ADHD seminar, and
Right. Right.
it was by a doctor who was looking at how much medication to give a child during a certain age. It was very sciencey, per year, per growth, how much they weighed, and all this. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, huh. Interesting. So the whole point of view, and this was his study, so that's fine, was just looking at diagnosing the kid with ADD or ADHD, whatever. They just need to be more active, period. And then giving their child medication. And what it was meant to do was to educate parents on what medication to give their child. And I got like a little bit heated. I know Facebook maybe doesn't see this side of me, but I got a little bit heated in this seminar because I said, well, could we not just change the lifestyle of the kid in the classroom and maybe, have them be more active throughout the day and see if their focus level would be better? Have you ever thought about just not putting medication in the mix at all? And everyone's like, oh, well, how would that work? And you can't do that because that's not in the education system. And how would he get his
Right.
math done? And I'm like, he'd probably be more efficient at 30 minutes of math than 2 hours if you just let him, get outside and run around a little bit. And there were times when parents would be quite on board because I was teaching phys ed at the time, and I said, hey, pop your child into the gym and I'll just, have them help out with like my kindergarten class or something like that. It's always nice to like have a grade 6 in there. And this kid that I was speaking about in my head was actually in grade 5, I think, at the time. And so my suggestion was, why don't you pop him in the gym with me for half the day and, have him do his work, like even outside of school. I'm sure he could just get the work done that he needed to get done. And he was a smart kid. But no, the answer was no, because that wasn't the way he was going to become intellectually sound, so to speak. And I struggled with that. And that kid was put on medication. And I have no idea how he's doing now, but that's one story that really stuck with me for long periods of time. And I think sometimes teachers are even, oh, well, we should probably put them on medication because they don't want to deal with, or they don't know how to deal with the kid's behavior.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah. So, and look, the other thing is here too is like the diet that they're getting fed at the schools. Peter's comment here, the artificial colorings and flavors that he was consuming as a child, ADD, ADHD, the shit that the kids are
Gosh,
fed in school.
when I was working in Australia,
the patients are fed in hospitals as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Airplanes.
Yeah, go on.
Well, when I was working in Australia,
Airplanes, yeah.
Gosh, what did they have there that I was like, this is disgusting? There were rolls of sausage, like a breaded roll.
Oh,
No, it was a sausage.
Roll. Pastry
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, sausage
and
roll.
it came with this disgusting red sauce. And I was just like, how are these kids eating this? Like, this is disgusting. Like, it looked disgusting, and
Wow.
it was okay. Yeah, anyway. Oh, wow. Troy seems, can
Troy
you read his
Allen.
whole story? Yeah.
I
What's
can.
his story?
I was diagnosed at 11 and was on meds till 40. It was a motherfucker getting off them, but finally feel human, I don't know, and have learned to handle my own human emotions and wish people would become more aware of self-yols. Knowledge sure helps. So this is where it's getting interesting.
And
because, like,
wait, sorry, relationships help on that too, because if you have other people in your life who understand this and they understand how you operate in your life and who you are as a person, they might be able to help guide you in what requirements you need on a daily basis. And now I'm getting a little bit heated about it because I've had so many people come to me and say, oh, well, I should be on meds for this. It's like, no, just get up and walk like for an hour throughout the day and be more active. Adults need it too. It's not just children. And yeah, we went off on the education tangent for sure. But I mean, adults need to be more active and move more too. And if you just add that one thing more into your day, you're going to have way more success. And also surround yourself with serving people. You're going to, you're going to be more positive as a person, period.
This is sounding very, now if I take it, you just said connecting with people.
Right.
It's all right. Fire it up, baby. Right. You talk about connecting with people. We've just had Peter talking about food. Sorry, and Troy. Peter's now talking about moving. So we've got eat, move. I think earlier on you mentioned something about rest or sleep. We start to look at all these 360 things and these things that keep coming up because pain is a symptom of something.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is what I'm concluding.
Well,
correct me if I'm wrong.
You work with all of this too, actually.
Well,
right?
Yeah, on the outside, because I went drilling into my own wake-up call a couple of years ago. Now, I wasn't in pain, but I was heading towards pain, and it could have been drastic pain if I didn't get onto it early, right? Mm-hmm. And so I started reversing things. And as I dived in, started to find out that there was a whole lot of other factors that get out of balance that then start to signal you through pain.
Right.
And so, it's that 360 thing, right? And so then I started getting into epigenetics. I know, Pete, you and I are going to be tussling it out on this, and I'm not going to, you're the PhD geneticist, right? Not me. So I'm looking forward to learning from you. But, the epigenetic expression that comes out of the wrong foods, maybe the wrong exercise, maybe not enough of the right sleep, rest, digesting. We're learning about fasting right now. We're learning about accelerating the body healing itself through stem cells, all these sorts of things. But from a 360 point of view, eat, moving, sleeping, connecting with people, right? The oxytocin.
Massive.
And then,
mindfulness.
Level, spiritual mindfulness right at the beginning, always in here, but then the self-actualization, the relationship and connection with yourself to learn about yourself. And so that whole 360 thing, if you've got that in balance and it's the right foods and it's clean right foods, then you're starting to get back on track. And so hence, you're mentioning Personal Health 360.
Right.
And anybody that's keen to learn more about that, they can PM me. And I can show them through. You
measured me up, and I got my results, and you get your results like what?
We're talking about,
like 20 minutes or something.
What are we talking about here, Anne? What are we talking about?
I'm talking about you measured me for my pH 360.
Oh, jeez, right, okay,
Right?
fine.
Yeah.
Good. Right, yeah, okay. So, sorry to be playing with you there. Yeah, pH 360, and the way that it measures up through, it's using the Fibonacci sequence and a whole of these things. And Pete, we want to be talking to you about this when we come to Queenstown as our gracious host. But then other devices, because that's something you can use to. Here is ideally epigenetically for what your phenotype is, your ideal phenotype, where you need to go with your food and chronobiology and where perhaps to live, what
It's a
sort of
good
exercise you should be
starting
doing.
place.
I'm working with Matt right now. It's a good starting place, but then the mind place first, because getting people to make those changes is always that challenge.
Well, that's why that's why I say having a coach on the side is essential. If you're going to start making all these massive changes and you want to do it, that's fine. But you need to have someone who you like working with, step one, guiding you on the way, for sure. That is insane. Sorry.
Mistakes.
What did Peter say up here?
You, Anne.
Paul Chek. I love Paul Chek's stuff. I've done like a bit of his things, and Peter brought him up. He has some really interesting things about movement. And I think he's Canadian. I'm not sure. Yes. I'm just tossing that in there. Yeah. Probably doesn't have a TV either. Anyway.
Yeah, right. He's stuck in the snow somewhere.
Cool.
Yeah, but
gosh, we've been on here for a while.
We have. We're gonna have to land this one.
Yeah.
We've had a lot to talk about, but then devices like this baby I'm wearing. Yes, I'm giving it a plug. But being able to monitor someone's progress as well, and because I'm so passionate about IT and digital health, which is really starting to explode, especially as we head into 2020, they're saying it's going to hit an inflection point. But the telemetry to run our bodies, we have it for racing cars. And like we're humans, shouldn't we have invented it for ourselves first? And rather than relying on a doctor that's been bought out by the pharmaceutical industry, take ownership of your own health. You can now. Right? This disruption that happened in IT is now happening in all these different industries. I wanted to go on the health one because of my own experience to make some change, especially when I found out everything's broken.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of things are broken, not everything. But
yeah, I mean, there's
out of their financial lane.
Yes, for sure.
Right?
Yep.
So, yeah. Right.
Agreed.
Sorry, I'll just get off the soapbox now.
That's okay.
Had to get that out. Fired me up.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think, what have we covered so far in my Facebook Lives? It was really about, like how pain sits in the body, how the brain reads your pain in the body, and how we can, kind of let that exit the body, so to speak, over time. How we hold on to it. And then, today we spoke about the relationships of things too, right? And really bringing that full circle on the fact that it's not just structural or emotional. Like, we need to develop serving relationships throughout our life. And we need to, like you said, the whole 360 of it is huge. And I guess if people want a starting point, I would actually recommend pH 360 for that, because I found it quite good just as a baseline. I know myself pretty well, but it's nice to have the information anyway. And, having a coach taking you through managing your pain and how you're going to get from point A to point B with somebody. And that's really what the whole relationship thing, in my opinion, is about. Because if you decide to do it on your own, you may get there, but you might not get there permanently. Or you may, have fallbacks and things like this on the way. So if you constantly have someone that you're accountable with, the progress is going to really happen. And you have your coaching too, and your progressions with your clients. That's going to just absolutely rock the world, right?
Well, we hope so, Anne, and yourself as well, right? Through the pain management piece. Look, I mean, we've got the system set up with using the devices to monitor people, as well as using the framework as the base framework with pH 360, but there's a lot of stuff above that we use to help people make those changes. It's great to have these frameworks, and it's great to have the devices, unless you've got a coach, like you say, and a mentor to help you along the way, because you're in there in the field of battle, right? And you got to pull people out, because you can't teach someone that's drowning how to swim. So you got to be pulling them out of that as a coach reprogramming and helping them to slowly, day by day, consistently doing that, and as you've said before too, that 1% thing each day, which compounds to start making the changes in the right direction. And that's
Right.
what, that gives it the whole holistic
Patience
support
is
mechanism
key.
as well.
Gosh, just being patient
Yep.
with yourself is so key. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
All right. Well,
that's been a while.
So, this is huge.
And
It's an hour and 20.
Peter's still here. How is he still here?
Dude,
Peter, how did we do?
He's been on fire. Yeah.
He has been on fire. By the way, I don't know. Peter Rouse, I got your name right for once. And I like that he comes on and comments. It's great. And I like him tossing in his 10, 20, 50 cents, whatever you want to say. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's great. We like having you here, Peter.
Award. Yeah, totally. Because Pete knows what he's talking about, right?
He does.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
All right. So, and we're going to land this little baby. So,
how many birds are you going for next week? That's how I want to land it.
Bring it. How many are you going for next week, Anne?
Okay, so I got 4 birds this week. I'm going for, I'm going for 20 next week. No, I'm going for 20 birds. Yeah.
You better get meditating.
I'm going to.
Dude. Whoa, my God. Okay.
20 birds by next Monday.
The session next week. We're going to do a bird check. Right, we're doing a bird check, duck hunting time. Yeah, there we go. No, there's no ducks in there, Pete. Yeah.
I can't wait for Peter to try Muse. It's gonna be great. I can't wait.
All right.
It's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah, my God.
Yeah.
He can use yours. Otherwise, I think mine's gonna melt down if I put it on, Pete. That brain activity that he's got going on. He's got to be. Crusade. I think he'd be a. We've got to measure up Pete on pH 360. That's what we're going to do. Pete, we are pH 360ing you. So I'll be getting my big, and I'll bring the extra big tape measure because I know you're a unit. I got a feeling you're going to be no, not a connector. You're going to be a guardian, for sure. Guardian, I reckon.
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
Pete, you might be on Facebook Live. We hope you're okay with that.
Hey,
we're volunteering you.
We're doing a podcast interview. We won't measure up then, but so it'd be good because I want to get the Pete's view on it as well with
me too.
pH 60 and epigenetics in general. It'd be great to have Pete on FB Live to talk about that.
How have you not drank water this whole time? I've been chugging back a tea and water and
Well, I got a production to run here. I'm sort of busy.
I'm just hanging out.
I'm commenting and I'm just doing this and that. While I'm thinking, I can't talk while I try and produce this thing,
That's fair.
Is there an asshole on the list? You might be the first, Pete. I got a feeling. It seems like you want to reserve that abnormal spot. Well, let's see if we can make some room for you.
He's in.
Anything to do with pain, make sure that this lady here on my right, your left, whatever. Anyway, off to the side here, PM Anne Shivas from Osteo on the Go, and you've got this pain management pilot you're running at the moment, haven't you?
Gosh, guys, stop talking.
You guys are on a long flight. Yeah, we're making there's strong winds, and we're making a very slow approach. Okay, as we land the plane. Sorry. Yes. Right. That was a quick plug for you.
You want to know? Sorry.
Program.
Program
last time I checked.
I do. It's in its finalizing stages, so I'm actually launching a pain-free management coaching program online. And that's just been through years and years of stuff in the one-on-ones, and I kind of dissected all of it and added it all into a 5 to 6 week program. We'll say 6 weeks, just to be sure. And that's what I want to do. I want to teach people how to learn about their own pain, potentially why they have it, track it, and they come out on the other end knowing quite a bit more about themselves, their bodies, and where to kind of go next, if that makes sense. because I was
send them
just,
my way.
yeah, I was just sick of people getting lost in the medical system. This is what it came down to. And I was sick of it. And I was like, okay, if no one else is doing anything, I'm going to. So here I am.
Right.
Yeah. And
Awesome.
so far, like we've had some really awesome success with, I'm just doing a pilot test right now. And we've had some really good success with people in the group. And I mean, I look forward to just helping more people with it in regards to their awareness levels and education on it, and moving forward with being just more healthy, longevity, and changing the pain conversation, right? So, yeah.
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's a reason they're having pain. It's usually symptomatic of something. It's unfortunate that people have to wait, although in your case, maybe not, because you know you're treating a lot of those acute almost victims that we have,
Right.
But then it's a shame that people have to wait until they actually have the pain before they do something proactively about their health.
Well, and coming back into it too is
you know?
I want to create a community where people do feel supported and they feel like they have a connection and relationships. And this is kind of what was like the end point that I was going to make, was that, you know, when people feel comfortable about talking about their pain and opening up about it, it sometimes, like I was going to say, everyone's not so different after all, really is what it comes down to. And having that, like, you know, that relational standpoint can be massive for some people. So they actually feel safe is really, you know, providing for them. So
being able to be vulnerable. And feeling safe is the first big step a lot of the time.
Oh, Peter, you're asking for a lot.
We're gonna
we
need to set up a retreat here in New Zealand.
We should. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That would be cool. In fact, you know what? I think Anne and I had a bit of a chat about talking to you about something like that. So what do you know? Great mind things alike. Okay, good. Just do you, Tommy's left shoulder is bigger now from holding this low bar. Yeah, I'm lactating in the lower back. Just so you want to know, my pain right now, it's slightly in the lower back, and it's been between the left and the right. But thanks to you, Matt, and drawing from my PH360 list, there's a little plug, of exercises that are best for my phenotype, being a crusader, like a dopamine addict, I think I'm strengthening some of this stuff up right now. Right? It's waking up, put it that way. You asked me about the exercises. Second time around, day one was great. Okay, let's get out of here.
That was a long one. Gosh.
See this lady on the right? Yeah. We're about to fuel
Sorry,
out.
guys.
It's going to be a crash landing pretty soon. We will see you on the next live. But remember to be here right now today. Enjoy B, because with B, you get more birds. Bye, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks, Anne.
Thanks. Bye.